So as you know, Truvada for PrEP was approved in the U.S. in 2012, and this is the indication, the original indication in the label. Truvada is indicated in combination with safer sex practices for pre-exposure prophylaxis to reduce the risk of sexually acquired HIV infection in adults at high risk. And this indication is based on clinical trials in men who have sex with men at high risk for HIV infection and in heterosexual serodiscordant couples. So how will PrEP be made available in clinical practice? The drugs will be the same as for HIV treatment, so it will be either branded Truvada or FDC, TDF generic versions where those are available. The guidance for their use could either be normative or by regulatory means, by labeling, or by both, and the process may vary by country. The access to medication remains to be determined at the local level. In some places it may be the same sites as for HIV treatment. In other cases it may be special sites designated for HIV prevention, and again that may vary by country. The Gilead HIV Access Program will support both treatment and prevention in the developing world. In terms of regulatory filings of Truvada for PrEP, as I mentioned, Truvada for PrEP was approved in the U.S. in July of 2012. We have filed for approval in South Africa in December of last year, in Thailand in April of this year, and we plan to file in Brazil in the second half of this year. We're also considering filing in various other geographies, and demonstration projects are currently ongoing in these countries, and that includes the countries that were originally part of the pivotal studies that led to the approval of tenofovir and emtricitabine or Truvada for PrEP, studies also evaluated Viriad as well, and that includes countries such as Kenya, Uganda, Botswana, Peru, Ecuador, and Ghana, but also places in the developed world as well where it's not currently available, and this includes the European Union, Canada, and here in Australia. There are demonstration projects going on in all of those places, and discussions are ongoing with the regulatory authorities at this point in time. The criteria that we would consider in making a determination in terms of whether to make a regulatory filing include whether the country regulatory authority is receptive to a regulatory filing, and also whether the country is prepared to make PrEP available if the filing is approved. As you know, the use of antiretrovirals for prevention and for post-exposure prophylaxis, or for example for prevention of maternal fetal transmission, has historically been based upon guidance from normative agencies such as the CDC, the WHO, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or various medical or professional societies in different countries, as opposed to our regulatory labeling. So most ARV drugs are approved initially based upon data for treatment, and the use for prevention is mostly off-label. For example, for post-exposure prophylaxis, there's no language in any label that specifically covers this, or no indication that covers the use of drugs for PrEP. And the only antiretroviral with the U.S. label for prevention of maternal fetal transmission is AZT, or ZDV, based on the original 076 study. So all of the other recommendations for use come from guidance from normative agencies, and certainly various groups have now addressed the potential use of ARVs and Truvada, specifically of Viriad for PrEP. And this includes the CDC that's issued guidelines for PrEP for use in high-risk men who have sex with men, serodiscordant couples, and IDUs in the U.S. based upon the IPREX Partners PrEP, Bangkok, TDF, and other studies. And as you've heard, the WHO guidance has recently been updated as well to include recommendations in various high-risk groups. And guidance has also been crafted in certain geographies, including the UK, France, and South Africa, to provide some recommendations on how ARVs could be used for PrEP. So then, how is Truvada made available for treatment of HIV? So Truvada is registered currently for the treatment of HIV in 154 countries worldwide. That includes over 100 countries in the developing world. It's available through local government programs, private market programs such as PEPFAR, the Global Fund, and the Gilead Access Program. It's available either as Gilead branded product Truvada or in generic versions in the developing world through Gilead's generic partners. So the Gilead Access Program really has two components. One is a partnership with distributors that make branded Viriad and Truvada available locally. And the second is a partnership with over a dozen generic manufacturers in India and Africa that make generic versions of Gilead or Truvada or single tablet regimens, combinations. They're able to actually combine either of those drugs with other drugs as they see fit to make products that they wish to make, price them as they wish to do so, and make them available in the geographies they wish to do that. So this strategy has successfully driven the price of Gilead and Truvada down almost 80% over the past 5 years. This past year, over 5 million patients in the developing world were on a tenofovir-containing regimen, and more than 99% were on a generic drug. So the principles behind the access program are sustainability, so to make sure that the program is sustainable over a prolonged period of time, that it's adaptable, so we've modified the program over the past 10 years as we've learned how best to make the drugs available across different parts of the world. Responsibility to try to focus on where the needs are the greatest, and partnership to leverage those existing programs that are out there and to work in collaboration with governments and other agencies in the public sector and the private sector to make medications most broadly available as possible. This is a map of our access operations in emerging markets geography. So this includes the access countries and the low middle income countries. And as you can see, it includes all of Africa and most of Latin America and a good part of Asia as well. It's 125 countries that are supplied by 20 regional business partners. Gilead is still a relatively small company compared to most, and we don't have offices all over the world yet, although we are expanding our geography on a yearly basis. We'll be opening an office, for example, in South Africa in the very near future. But we do depend upon our relationships with various distributors to both do the regulatory filings, conduct the pharmacovigilance, and also the education that's required to make the medications available in these various places. We also, as you know, have a generic licensing program that covers both HIV and hepatitis, and currently involves 17 Indian and African licensees. It does involve a full technology transfer, and we require that our partners do seek WHO or FDA certification, and we do retain a small royalty to ensure the sustainability of the program. And this is a list of the various companies that we do have collaborations with. And this program will be extended as well to involve hepatitis C as well as hepatitis B. We also were the first company to establish a relationship with the Medicines Patent Pool, and we've conveyed all of our intellectual property for our current drugs, including not only Gilead and Truvada, but also for cobicistat and elbictegravir, and for the various single tablet regimens that can be generated out of those. And we're currently in discussions around the new formulation of tenofovir-TAF. So as I mentioned earlier, nearly 50% of patients on antiretroviral therapy in the developing world are receiving either tenofovir or FTC-based product. This is a look at how the reach has changed from 2006 here up through now 2013. We've done a variety of things, including focusing on making the importance of registrations, and then obviously strengthening our relationship with both our distributors and our generic partners. The dark bars are actually Gilead branded product, and the light pink is actually the generic product. So it shows you how the mix of that has changed also over time. This is a graph showing the reduction in price that's been achieved through this program for both Gilead and also for Truvada over time. You can see that the savings have been significant. We also have a program where we have encouraged our partners, generic partners, to work to improve the manufacturing process for FTC so that there'll be pricing parity between 3TC and FTC, and the decision about which drug to use there should be made upon the decision about which drug they prefer to use, not necessarily upon price. This is a list of the countries that have approvals for Truvada with the date next to the country when it was actually approved. It's now, as you can see, almost 109 countries. These are the countries in the access program, and includes the access in low and middle income countries. And this is a list of the countries where we filed for approval. You can see there's 19 of those. And you'll see actually the dates for those. It also shows the dates where the filings were made, and there's many of them that date back actually to the 2007 or 2008. So there's a variety of reasons why it does take some time in some of these countries to carry out approvals. Some of it has to do with the ability of the country actually to conduct a rigorous regulatory review. Others have to do with political will or administrative issues, the fact that some of the countries prefer to use older treatment regimens or around perceived cost. They also list the countries where there's pending submissions as well, where we have not yet filed for either for Truvada. So in conclusion, Truvada for PrEP is a promising new strategy for the prevention of HIV infection, as you've heard earlier today. Truvada for PrEP is the same product as Truvada for treatment. The guidance for the use of Truvada for PrEP can be normative guidelines, can be by normative guidelines or by regulatory labeling or both, and may vary by country. Gilead will work collaboratively with local countries to facilitate guidance on PrEP or regulatory labeling as desired, and Truvada for PrEP is available in the developing world via the Gilead Access Program, including our partnership with generic companies. And actually, before I close, I'd like to pay tribute to Hugh Blanga, as he was actually a trusted advisor to Gilead, and as you know, a vehement advocate for access, and was a consultant to us on our access program. And through the many different contributions he made, and he made many, and certainly the development of combination antiretroviral therapy and his focus on access, one of the things he did do as president of the IAS from 2002 to 4 was to initiate a program called the Industry Liaison Forum, which was a collaboration between industry and the IAS, initially with a focus on developing ethical principles for the conduct of research in the developing world. However, when it became very difficult to conduct prevention research studies in the mid-2000s, and many of you in the room here were investigators involved in those trials, and you know the difficulties that were encountered, he actually turned the focus of the IAS-ILF to the conduct of prevention research in the developing world, and brought together stakeholders over a period of about 2 years to develop some consensus on ethical conduct of prevention research in the developing world using ARVs, and also carried out various symposia at the IAS meetings, demonstrating the value that this strategy could potentially have. He also is one of the few treatment investigators that I'm aware of that actually put pen to paper and wrote an opinion piece on the importance of, potential importance of prevention research, and how it was very important that these studies be carried out. So with that, I'll close.